All right, are you ready?
Yeah? This episode is brought to you by Carlisle Tattoo Co. Bold, bright and everlasting. You can find us at 178 Carlisle Street, St Kilda, Melbourne, Australia. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Carlisle Studios. My name's Hal Hunter and I've just made my yearly pilgrimage out to Cranbourne to Golden Heart Tattoo Parlour. Is it parlour at the end?
Yeah, Golden Heart Tattoo Parlour.
There we go. And I'm lucky enough to be here with a father,
Yep.
a husband, professional tattoo artist.
That's me.
Shop owner.
Yes.
Professional machine builder.
Yes.
My mentor, or one of, and first time podcast guest,
That's it.
Scott Moss.
That's me.
Welcome.
Thank you.
It's been good to see you
It's great to see you.
in the 10 minutes we've caught up.
Yeah, that's right. We haven't been here very long.
How's your week been?
Well, last week? This week?
Any week.
This
This is
week-
your first time, so
well,
you could
yeah.
literally say anything and it will be relevant.
This week has started off good. Had the cars out over the weekend.
Yeah.
Cruising around with the
What
kids.
cars?
And we got it's my wife's XD Falcon. So, yeah, got that out. First time, it feels like this year.
Yeah.
But, yeah, cruised around with a few friends and the kiddies and Jade and, yeah, soaked up the sun.
Nice.
Yeah, it was
Now you're
great.
in here talking to me
That's it.
on a Monday.
Back in the cold tattoo shop.
Yep.
On
Very
Monday.
nice.
That's great.
No one wants to hear about my week because we're here to talk about you.
Oh, that's all right then.
How has the shop been?
The shop's been great.
Yep.
It's been one hell of a time.
Did you just celebrate, was it 2 years?
No, we're coming up on our third.
Third, yep.
Third year in October. Yeah.
That's exciting.
Mid October.
That's gone so quickly.
It's been very fast.
Yep.
Very, very fast.
I always think back to when we were at Vintique, which we'll touch on later. And I've got that photo. It always gets, when your photo sends you like memories and shit?
Yeah, when they pop up when you open your photos.
That photo of my last day with you and Bobby always comes up for some reason.
Yeah.
And I look way different. And I'm a bit disappointed with how I've aged. But
I don't think any of us have
that
aged very
feels
well.
like fucking no time ago, but
Yeah.
like also a lifetime ago.
Yeah. It really wasn't that too far before I went out and did Golden Heart either.
Yeah.
Which was quite crazy.
Yeah.
Because it feels like it was miles apart, but it really wasn't.
Nah. Yeah, pretty quick because it was only a few months, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because I left in October and then it was like the end of the year, I think.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we opened up in October.
Nah, very good.
Yeah.
You've recently been up to Sydney
I have been up to Sydney. Sorry.
for the Sydney Tattoo Convention.
Yeah, that was on the 13th, the 11th to the 13th of last month. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolute blast. Reese Gordon, Todd Bailey and his wife Katie put on one of the best tattoo conventions that I've ever been to. Mm-hmm. It was really, really unique in the way that it was more set up for the tattooer.
Yep.
Not so much the punter, which it's a refreshing scenario to be in, definitely.
Yeah. I've only done the one convention, which was in Brisbane last year.
Yep.
And I wasn't initially going to do it. And then everyone else, Bobby was like, oh, everyone's doing it. And I was like, oh, I'll go. We'll make a weekend of it. Pretty sure we gave everyone COVID at the convention.
Yeah.
Because I was feeling really sick.
Yeah.
But I didn't
You gotta
do...
spread the love, man.
Well, I
Spread
didn't
the
do a
love.
test. So...
Yeah.
And we were right near like where the stage is.
Yep.
And I've been to conventions before and it's always the same sort of shit, which is why if anyone's listening and they hear tattooers reference the recent Sydney Tattoo Convention and most likely the upcoming Iron Gate one,
Yes.
that it's by tattooers or people in the industry for tattooers.
Yes, that's right.
It's sort of, I guess they're referencing like there's less of the like more tacky stuff.
Yeah. More tattoo and more about the tattooing and less sort of bullshit that goes along with it.
Less fire-breathing burlesque
Yeah,
dances.
you don't have guys swallowing swords and like grid girls walking around the thing while DJs like blasting hard styles.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing because we were right near the stage and it was literally every hour on the hour they did this dance performance to the same song, man. And it was like, obviously I'm not looking because I'm tattooing and it was doing my head in, bro. Like
just that constant.
Yep.
Yeah.
But the Sydney one looked really good.
The Sydney one was great. Absolutely amazing. We drove up on Thursday beforehand.
That impressed me that you drove.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be doing it again for Iron Gate as well, which will be up and back 3 times this year to drive to Sydney. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the Sydney Tattoo Convention was like nothing I've ever been to.
Yeah,
Reece
awesome.
Gordon and Todd Bailey and his wife Katie set up such an amazing show from the very start. Like before the actual convention started, they did a meet and greet down there at Little Tokyo, which was absolutely awesome. Got to meet Freddie Corbin.
Yeah,
so that was really cool.
Well, did he do like a speech then, or was that a different night?
Yeah,
I saw some photos of that.
It was the same night, the Thursday night when we were there. We had, just kick back, real casual sort of thing at Little Tokyo, where he just talked about the history of Oakland tattooing, how sort of he got his foot in the door with that, and how he's got Temple Tattoo now.
Yeah.
Which was really cool.
Yeah,
Hearing
nice.
it from somebody who's been around it, not just reading it, off a blog.
Yeah. For anyone listening for Freddie Corbin, there's a Vice Tattoo Age documentary on YouTube
amazing.
about him.
Yeah.
And I always just remember he talks about, have you heard the bit where he talks about breaking into like a morgue or whatever when he's young and stealing these fucking tins of
They stole like a bucket of human skin.
Yeah, and he tatted on it.
Yeah, and they all tattooed on it. And there's a real funny bit that he was talking about where a guy actually come across one of the skins that he tattooed that was in formaldehyde. Like some years later, and he's like, "Look at this. This was done in the 40s." And Freddie's like, "No, man, I did that, like a couple of years ago." But yeah, very, very cool story.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. And do you know the dates for the Iron Gate one? Are you fully booked?
I'm not fully booked. I have been leaving my Arvos completely empty so I can do walk-ups.
Oh, nice.
So that's the 3rd to the 5th of November.
Yep. Easy.
So that'll be really, really good. 400 tattooers.
Yeah.
Like
it looks cool. It looks real cool.
An amazing show.
Yeah. We were going to go. Well, I was going to go with Bella, but obviously Bella, I think it's on Bella's due date, or just near it.
Yeah, it's the start of November.
So I couldn't commit to going, but
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I would have loved to go.
Dad life, mate. It's coming right.
Yeah, I'll live vicariously through you on Instagram. Watch you do
right.
it.
Yeah.
Outside of work life, anything notable?
Just aside from like the kids, having fun with the kids and Jade and stuff, really my life consists of either tattooing or cars.
Yep.
So, building hot rods and doing all that kind of stuff. So, on the tail end of a big 3-year build right now.
I'm actually really impressed with how it looks.
Yeah, thank you.
Because
it's come a long way.
You recently took it up to Nostalgia Lane.
Yes.
What car is this one?
This is have a 1960 XK Falcon.
Yep.
That's barely a XK Falcon anymore. It's extremely heavily modified. And we sort of busted ass to get it done, to take it to Nostalgia Lane. Nobody had seen it since before I painted it.
Yep.
We towed it up there. Me and a good friend of mine got up there and put it on display and had a really, really cool time up there.
I tattooed some guys that ran into you up there and they said you and your friends are very wild.
Very, yes.
Quote.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
which didn't surprise me. I saw some Instagram stories and it didn't surprise me they said that.
We had a lot of fun from the second that I got to Sydney to when we left. There wasn't a time that I didn't have a drink in my hand. So yeah.
Oh, that's good.
It was a good time.
Nice. So I guess, cracking into the questions. Yep. I've got heaps here. So depending on how long you want to go for, we might not get through them all.
I don't mind.
But when did you first get interested in tattooing?
It would have been 2002, 2003, I think. I started hanging around the hardcore scene a lot.
Yep.
Going down to gigs, Friday, Saturday, whenever we could. And, finish up school, jump on the bus, head down to Dandenong and watch some hardcore. And those guys, all being either 18 or above, they were all starting to get very heavily tattooed.
Yep.
And, you know, that was a sort of time where Japanese was going through another big spike. So you see these guys getting these wild sleeves done that there's no skin showing.
Yep.
It's all 100% saturation. And that to me just really struck me. And at the time, my older brother had started getting tattooed, so I was seeing it firsthand. My uncles and my cousins and stuff all started getting tattooed as well. And then I went down to get my nose pierced at the tattoo shop that they were getting tattoos done, and just that whole environment. This is back when tattoo shops were real dark and dusty and musty, and there's a lot going on there. And I absolutely fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And
how old were you at the time?
I would have been about 11 or 12 at the time. And then that's when I first started hanging out down there. And then, 13, 14, really started getting into it.
Yep.
Started drawing a lot. I was just drawing cartoon sort of stuff at the time. And then really got stuck into the tattoos sort of stuff. The guys at that shop were just sort of laughing about this kid that was hanging out at the tattoo shop every week, because that's how often my family was going down there weekly. So I'd go down there, started copying the pictures, and then I put this portfolio together and not having any idea of what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I went to a bunch of different tattoo shops, and they all just sort of laughed at me because I looked about 4 years old.
Well, you look fucking 15 now, so I can't imagine.
Shaved,
I was I noticed that before. I was like, fuck.
Yeah, and I've grown my hair back. So but very, very super young at that age already. And just went from shop to shop, getting my mum to drive me around to take me in there. And I was lucky enough to find somebody that wanted some free labour.
Yep.
Wanted the floors swept and tubes cleaned and setup's done, and the rest is history.
Yep. So what age did you get your first tattoo?
The first tattoo that I got, I tattooed myself in the bathroom of my parents' house.
The Canadian maple leaf.
Yes, the maple leaf, and I did a Sacred Heart the same day.
Yep.
I was 13 when I did that. So my first tattoo that I did and got were on me, by me.
I love that.
Well.
And in your groin.
Yes.
Which is that's like a weird spot to do it.
Well, I was very young at the time, and I thought, I'll put it somewhere where my parents can't see it. and I went way up high.
It's fucking, I've seen it several times, and it's like, it would have been so much harder to do because of how high it is.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't want to even do a tat in that spot on anyone else.
I recently got Ronnie to cover them for me.
Really?
And it was probably one of the most painful experiences that I've ever had. It was horrible. It actually took me 2 sessions to get a tattoo that should have only taken maybe an hour and a half at the most. But I had a very, very hard time getting it done. Yeah. And I've still got a small gap on the other side to do, which could probably remain the way that it is.
It never ends, man.
No, it really doesn't.
I was thinking about this the other day because one of the boys at the shop, Aaron, he has started like star and dot in his own leg.
Yeah.
But really dense.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh man, like I could put heaps of dots through my arms, obviously like star and dots really through heavy. All my legs. And then it doesn't end. And I went home, I was looking in the mirror and stuff, and I was like, I've only been tattooed once in the last 12 months. And I was like, fuck man, I should really crack into this.
Yeah, I did mine. I have very heavy stars and dots on my legs as well. And I did mine during one of those lockdowns. I sat on a yoga mat in the living room, like on the tiled living room.
Self-torture.
Just dot and star on my legs. I got Jade to jump in the bits that I couldn't get done.
I saw that,
myself. Yeah, Jade was tattooing me.
Jade's your wife, and she doesn't tattoo.
No, she doesn't. She doesn't. But she has. She's only ever tattooed me. But yeah, she's tattooed me a few times now.
Yeah, nice. I was talking about this I keep having to remind myself to like explain the context of things I'm going to talk about because obviously we know what would.
And it's been a long time.
Yeah, but I was having this discussion with one of the guys at the shop the other day about how when I started at Vintique and through those, I think it was about 6 years, there was like a big emphasis on obviously you were like heavily tattooed.
Yes.
And in a different style to what I was getting because you got all the background and all that and Bobby as well, same thing.
That's it. Fully saturated, everything.
And even though I don't have a single tattoo like that, that's what I ultimately want to look like.
Yeah.
So
just a big colourful mess.
Yeah, well, just like tattooed. And I was talking to Henry, who's the apprentice at Carlisle.
Yep.
You haven't met him, but
No, I haven't.
and I was like, I always reference back to like you tattooing yourself or you coming in one day and getting tattooed by Bobby or asking me to tat you. And same with Bobby, you know, like he's tatting his leg, you know, like.
He's gone crazy.
Yeah. And I'm like, although ultimately it's like aesthetically the average customer might think it looks shit because you've got, you know, like a blacked out arm or something or whatever.
Messy.
But that to me always is like a sign of like how passionate you are about tattooing.
Yeah, that's right.
That it's like you're at home effectively on holidays and you're like, oh, what would I do today? And you end up like just drawing on your leg.
Colour yourself in.
Yeah.
I remember speaking to Bobby, this is a few years ago, speaking to him on the phone. I said, what are you doing today? And he's like, I'm tattooing myself right now in the, I think he was in his living room with a pen, like a pen machine, rotary machine, blacking his own thighs out again for probably the fourth time.
I've got a text from him, a photo of him in the mirror. He's fully naked, sitting on a tat stool in the middle of his lounge room.
It's so funny.
And he was like, he'd written like, I've made a massive mistake.
And he would have been a few drinks deep at that point as well, I reckon.
But yeah, for me, it's always like, I guess maybe a bit nostalgic because it's like a while ago now, but that was always like a driving force of like, there's like a goal to achieve, you know, wanting to get heavily tattooed.
Super heavily tattooed.
Yeah, a little bit competitive between obviously you and Bobby and then me chasing you guys.
Yeah.
And
well, Bobby and I were super, super competitive at one point. We were tattooing each other 2 or 3 times a week at one point.
And that's what I say to all the young guys at the shop is like, if you want the opportunity to do stuff that might be hard to convince your customers to get or like, you know, you want to look more tattooed than your customers, which I think they all do. Yeah. It's like when you have the opportunities, especially when you're young and motivated and it doesn't hurt as much, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like that's the time you should fucking be doing it.
Yeah,
you know,
go hard. And if you've got the time to do it, you know, we used to do 40 minutes in the middle, like in between tattoos. Like we'd have a client in the morning, client in the Arvo. All right, quick, let's do something real fast. Yeah. Like see how fast you can do it. See how far you can push it. Yeah,
and I've had this discussion with Bobby heaps, and I think like if you're a tattooer and you're heavily tattooed, if it doesn't really forget about your ability in tattooing. It's like if you go to any shop in the world and you're doing a guest spot and stuff like that, it's like they have to on some level respect that you're into tattooing.
Oh, definitely.
You know, more so than someone who's the best tattooer in the world, but they've got fuck all tats.
Yeah.
You know, because this is like, I've always viewed it as like, yeah, that's like, if you're into tattoos, like, well, you want to get fucking tattooed.
That's the way that I see it as well, is like, we've dedicated our lives to tattooing. Like, it's like myself pretty far along right now. Yeah. Dedicated our lives to it. So why wouldn't you dedicate your own skin to something that you're meant to be so passionate about?
Yeah.
And, you know, like I'm very heavily tattooed and I've gone like twice over.
I'm looking at your half blast over sleeve that needs to be finished.
Yeah, no, it's still just sitting there. And it is like I would go after I've finished my blast over sleeves, I'll probably end up blacking my arms out and then going back over the top of that again, because it's like I see clients now that I've been tattooing for a while now, and they're starting to get their bodysuits very far along. I'm like, this guy looks more heavily tattooed than me.
Yeah.
What can I do about that? And it's like, well, I'll black my shit out there. And I'll just keep going harder and harder and harder.
Yeah.
But it is getting harder and harder and harder to get tattooed as well
Exactly,
because
yeah.
it hurts so much more now.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but it gets worse when you get older.
It really does. And I think you start running out of those easy spots to do. You know,
Yeah.
when you first start getting tattooed, you get your arms done, you get your legs done, and then you start getting into those trickier spots, you know, back and chest and stuff like that. And then as soon as that's done, like you're doing your inner thighs,
Yep.
and you're doing your armpits, and you're doing your ass cheeks, and you're doing stuff like that where that all sucks.
Yeah.
It all sucks.
No, it's not a fun time, but keep coming and get them, please, everyone.
Yeah, that's right, please.
So you don't have to go into this if you don't want to, because I actually don't know the answer. Who apprenticed you, and how was your apprenticeship? Do you have any any sort of iconic, memorable moments from learning to tattoo?
Yeah, my apprenticeship was great. Personally, I had a really good experience with it. I apprenticed at a shop in Carrum Downs called Scarf for Life.
I love that
Underneath-
name.
It's so good. It's the opposite to what you want when you tattoo, but it's based off a Rose Tattoo album
Yep.
and song and stuff like that. Cozzy LaRossi was the person that taught me how to tattoo. He learnt how to tattoo from Zane Stevens that used to work at Vic Market, and now he's over in Melton somewhere.
Yeah.
Because he's just retired tattooing within the last few months. He was great, very loving, very kind, very strict, and very hard
Yeah.
as well. He was everything that a teacher, in my opinion, a teacher could be. He's like, he gave me the tools that I needed and let me go. But if I did something wrong, I'd know about it
Yep.
as well, you know. And there was that like element of, because he was so much older than me as well, and he's big, burly dude covered in tattoos as well. He'd like scare the shit out of you.
Yeah.
As soon as he fired up, you know, little 14-year-old Scott shriveled up into a little ball, and you know, I probably started crying or something at that point. But no, he was really, really good. Tattooing in the southeast, especially deep southeast suburbs of Melbourne, you get all sorts in there, and you know, it was very much a street shop, so it still is now. And you know, you walk in and you get your tat done, and do it to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
Always. But the most memorable moment that I probably got is a funny one, and it's an old guy that come in. I'd tattooed him a few times, but he was mainly getting tattooed by Cozzy. And he would just come in and pick off the walls.
Yeah.
And that was when tattoo shops were just full of Cherry Creek. That's all it was. You come in, you pick at the line drawings on the back of the flash sheet.
Did it have those big like almost like a folder that's attached to the wall, and
like the big rack, and you
Yeah.
flick through and you can hear them clinging and clanging together. And
Yeah.
and yeah, so you picked this clown, and I tattooed it on him from memory. It was all right. Like,
Yeah.
wasn't the worst thing that I had ever done, that's for sure. But he looks at the mirror, and then he looks at his tat in person, and kept bouncing back and forth from that. And then he looked at it and goes, "I fucking hate that." And like, I've just gone gross white.
Yeah.
Because this guy was a bit of a tough guy, for sure. And
Even if he wasn't and he said it to you, it's like,
it's like the first time that I've ever had somebody say that they don't like a tattoo that I did.
yeah.
And, you know, I've copped it a few times since then, and now I just sort of shrug it off. Like, it sucks for them, but I did it the best I could. And
Yeah.
it was the design that he actually didn't like.
Oh,
And
really?
Yeah, I copied it line for line. He knew exactly what he was getting.
Yeah.
And so it was a clown, like one of these Joker clown things.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, the tattoo's great. Like, your line work's good, your colour's good." He's
Yeah.
like, "I just don't know why I got that fucking design." And
Well, that's a good result. in the
it's
end.
the best case scenario. I ended up blacking it out like 4 weeks later.
Oh, really?
And we didn't even blend it into the other tats. Like, I just followed the outside of the outline that I put on him and just blacked it out, so he still had the same shape of the tattoo.
Just solid black.
He just solid
Just a big
black.
silhouette.
Yeah. It was quite a time. And like, even after he told me that he didn't like the tat, he paid me. I think he even gave me a tip. And we used to see him every week.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it definitely wasn't anything that I did. But when you hear somebody turn around and say that they hate the tattoo that you've just done on them, you know, it's humbling.
Yeah, it would be disappointing.
Yeah.
That when people look in the mirror and then like look at the tat real close and then like they spend ages and they don't say anything and you're sort of standing behind them like, what do you think, man? Like
And you're hoping that they say,
even if it's a tat, like they've showed you a tat you've done, they want the exact same one and you do it exactly the same. And they're spending, 30 seconds looking at it in the mirror. I'm going, oh, fuck, what is he going to turn around and go
they're probably just super stoked with it. And like, I'm hoping that they're looking at it and they're lost for words with how much they like it. But sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
Yep.
And that day I lost. So.
Well, not really.
That's like, but
you did a good tattoo. They just didn't like it.
Yeah, and like I said, he was a big, like burly sort of guy. Yeah. I reckon I would have been 15 or 16.
Yeah.
When I did that tattoo, and you don't know how to react to these guys. That if you saw them down the street, you wouldn't make eye contact with them.
I do think about that because you've just. Was it last week, 18 years tattooing?
Yes.
And how old are you now?
31.
31.
Yeah.
So, you were obviously really young starting.
Very,
it's like, I can't imagine now going into a tat shop and there's like a young teenager working there as a tattooer. Unless it was like the son or whatever of the
owner.
Relative
or something like that, for sure. I haven't seen it again.
Yeah.
Like since then. I think when I walked in there, because he just saw something in me that I definitely didn't see myself.
Yeah.
I think a large part of it was that he had some tubes in the back, a lot of tubes in the back that needed to be scrubbed. I reckon that was probably a large percentage of it, but he hadn't taught somebody before.
Yeah.
And I'm under the same sort of idea about it. Like the younger they are, the more they soak up and the less they've seen at that point. So they haven't, now it's a bit different because everybody sees everything all the time. But back then you didn't.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we sort of not got away with it, but the idea of that young kid in a tattoo shop, nobody's going to see it either. Back then, because like Instagram wasn't a thing.
Yeah,
Facebook was barely a thing. Just MySpace.
Who was your top friends on MySpace?
Bobby was right up there.
Yeah. Was Bobby really popular on MySpace, or was it Tumblr?
Yeah, it was a bit of both. Yeah, I'd met him previously, but when we started building that friendship or whatever, it was definitely a lot more MySpace and I'm pretty sure he was. I know Tumblr really. He sort of did a number on Tumblr as well.
Yeah,
but MySpace at the time we were all young and starting to get tattooed and stuff like that. So
you were at Scarred to Life for how long?
Yeah, Scarred for Life. I was there. From there, I tattooed there from 2005 to 2009.
Yep. And then you went to...
And then I went straight to Vintique. There, Bobby had opened the shop and he was just by himself.
Yeah.
I'd been getting tattooed by Bobby a fair bit. At that point, he wanted to help me sort of level up a bit. Like I said, full street shop, Scarred for Life. So, using thin liners and doing lots of like wash and Cherry Creek sort of stuff. And Bobby really opened my eyes to that like proper custom tattooing.
Yep.
Where you draw everything while your customer's sitting right in front of you. And that's what he did when he first started tattooing me. He did with my leg, just drew it right in front. What do you want? And just drew it right in front of me.
Yep.
And he offered me a spot there and pretty much never left. I just kept on going back there. So like it was a full-time job. So I went there. I've got I've got to thank Bobby for, pretty much everything that I have in tattooing, aside from actually learning it.
Yeah.
With Cozzy, but I don't think I'd be where I am without having met Bobby.
Yeah.
For sure.
Obviously the same there, and you go in that category as well. This actually got mentioned at the shop the other day because Bobby always refers to like when you and me and him were at Vintique, like early days for me, as like the golden days.
Yeah.
Like a bit nostalgic and stuff like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously like there's been like a lot of people coming to tattooing since then. So I was I think there was one apprentice before me.
Yeah, we had one guy, but he never finished his apprenticeship with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then it was me, and then the next apprentice was Bella.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was like it was about like 5 years roughly.
Yeah, that's right.
Between that time. And then since then there's been like a lot of young tattooers come through there and at Carlisle and stuff. So yeah, recently there's been more tattooers coming into it through Vintique and through Carlisle. But so they all like come into it and they've got, stencil machines and fucking printers and all this shit. And it sounds like basic stuff, but it was like, I was telling them the other day, I was like, no, well, I remember I had to hand stencil this back piece for Bobby.
Yeah.
Like full, I wouldn't say like ghetto style, but like ultra basic setup at Vintique.
Definitely. When we first started Vintique, we didn't have a printer. We didn't have a stencil machine. We hand stenciled absolutely everything. We used to go to the newsagents across the street in the morning. Bobby and our routine would be get into Vintique, like sweep and mop and do all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then we would sit there and draw. We probably wouldn't start tattooing until 11:30 every day. And we would get there at 8.
Yep.
So we'd clean the shop, do all that, do our drawings that we knew that we had sort of going on, go over to the newsagents across the street, photocopy them, do 3 different sizes, like a smaller one, the same one that we did, off the drawing, and then a bigger one.
Yeah.
And like you had to pick the
yeah,
size.
it's like there's 3 options.
Yeah, you get 3 options. You have to get the little, the medium, or the big.
Yeah.
And yeah, we did that for ages.
Yeah.
Like too long, hand stenciling. I think it was maybe like 2 or 3 years there doing that before we got a stencil machine.
Yeah.
And yeah, we never used we used to hand stencil all our back jobs. If doing anything big, we didn't even think about like cutting that design up and running it through the stencil machine. We just hand stencil straight off the tracing paper that we were drawing on.
Yeah, and it's funny, like, I guess as you like get older in tattooing, you sort of, like I used to think when I started and you guys would talk about when you started, it was like a fully different era.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. You guys were, when I started, you guys were all on disposable tubes. Yeah. So it was like I never had to scrub steel tubes or anything like that. And you used to always talk about like scrubbing tubes and all this sort of shit.
I still scrub tubes every day.
Yeah.
Like now, I'm back.
You've gone back to the steel.
As soon as we opened Golden Heart, we had a sterilizer here. I went straight back to using steel.
You prefer that? Obviously.
Much prefer.
Yeah,
much
why?
Steel. For me personally, with the machines that I use, because they do run fast and hard, I feel that when you use plastic, you overwork your machines a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot more tension on your machines because you've got that element of plastic, the needle embedding in the plastic, and it restricts flow as well. So as soon as you've got steel, the ink flows sometimes to the point that you can't see what you're doing because it's just ink and shit sort of going everywhere.
Yeah.
But it does relieve a lot of tension on your springs and it takes a lot of weight off your machine as well. It's an added weight physically in your hand.
Yeah.
But it reduces vibration.
Yeah.
And I've just become so used to it now that even when I do jump on disposable tubes, they're still like aluminium disposable tubes that you throw in the bin. Yeah.
See, because obviously we didn't have them at Vintique when I started, so I started on disposables. So it's like I've tried out the steel and stuff, but I'm like, I think what you sort of come up using, you may be like just more comfortable with that. And
Yeah, definitely.
so that's why I just use the fucking
So that's what we were using at like the only thing that we could use at Vinteak.
Yeah.
Was when I was at Scarred for Life and learning stuff, I learnt with steel. And then it took me ages to realise why my machines were running so shit for so long. And it was because they were never tuned to using disposable tubes.
Yep.
Which I feel like a lot of people won't sort of say that or do that for you when they're building you a machine or you're buying a machine. They don't ask you if you use steel or plastic. But yeah, I tune my machines accordingly.
Well, you're a real, like, I always tell people you're like a real technician when it comes to tattooing.
Yes.
Like, I describe your like style a bit like that as well. Like technically very, very precise.
Yeah.
That's obviously like a talent thing, but then also like a style choice.
Yeah,
I would say for you.
Yeah, I've picked to do that.
Yeah,
definitely.
But then when it comes to machines as well, you're like, all the shit about like amps and volts and tuning and all of that. Whereas I feel like Bobby obviously has an understanding of that, but it's like, it's much more like, does it just work how he likes it?
Yeah, that's it. Like if it fucks up, he could probably, like he'd get it going again.
Yeah.
But it probably wouldn't be the same as what he had previously. And like a lot of tattooers are like that. I took a big deep dive into it recently. Yeah. Over the last few years. But when I was an apprentice, that was one of the main things that, because he really pushed on me, was to like if your machine breaks mid tattoo, are you able to fix it? Yeah. Nowadays, every tattooer's got 6 machines sitting there ready to go. But when I started tattooing, I had 2. Yeah. And there was definitely occasions where I'd walk into the tattoo shop and my machine's sitting on the table, completely dismantled, and he just did it just to mess with me and to see if I could put it back together again. Yeah. Before my 10 o'clock appointment rolled in, and that would be about 9 o'clock when I realised that my machine had been completely stripped apart. So you have to do it really quickly. But yeah, for me, knowing that like technical side of things, I just really, really enjoyed it. And I feel like machine building and stuff like that has really pushed that into me. It's been a very deep hole that I've stuffed myself in building machines. Yeah, because that's like, you've obviously started, do you call it SM machine or Scott Moss machines? SM machines. SM machines. Yeah. And you obviously, you've obviously learnt how to do that through Colin. Yes, so I started getting into it during the lockdowns. Yep. I got my hands on some really, really old books about machine building that 95% of it isn't relevant now. Yep. But the bones are there and you can take what you want out of it. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to just learn how to do it. I wanted to learn more about like the workings of a machine and every single little nook and cranny of one. Yeah. And I got in touch with Colin Creed, who's become a very good friend of mine. Mm-hmm. He builds absolutely amazing machines, very old school. Yep. He tattooed through the 70s and the 80s, gave it up. Doesn't tattoo anymore. I actually got his last tattoo that he said that he's ever going to do. Yeah, wow. I've actually got a funny story about Colin from the shop the other day. Oh, really? Yeah. I don't want to interrupt you, but... No. And he sort of took me under his wing. Mm-hmm. He runs like a workshop. Yep. That it was meant to start at 10 days, finish at 10 days. I think we ended up doing 15. And then I'd go there every other Monday as well and just pick his brain, or I'd call him and just text him 6 million questions, and my machines, I just wanted to build machines for myself that could keep up with the way that I like to work. And I was having a really, really hard time doing it. And then, I thought I'd just learn for myself. A few people got their hands on it, you being one of them. Mm. Got some of my really early machines. I had really good feedback about them. Yeah. I love that machine. Yeah, it's great. I disappointed the other week because the clamp isn't like
complete. You know, it's got the hollow at the front.
The split in the middle, yeah.
Yeah, so I can't hang it on my machine hooks. Yeah.
So it gets stuffed in the drawer.
And I was like, I could drill a hole in it, but that would fuck it.
Yeah, don't do
and
that.
I was like, no, I'm not. So it just sits in the drawer.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So a few people got my early machines. I set the page up because most people don't give a shit about tattoo machines that follow you for your work.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of people don't sort of don't really know about it, don't want to know about it, and that's totally fine. But it sort of all got pushed back by all the other shit that's going on Instagram now.
Yeah.
So I just made a machine just to keep the two separate, so tattooers can come out and see my machines and see what I have to offer. And it was good. I sold some for the first time at a convention.
Yeah,
at
sold them all.
Sydney Tattoo Convention. I sold out on the Friday.
I saw
which
that.
was really cool. But
I was really impressed with all of that. The whole setup you had and all that. And then when I saw the sold out, I was like, fuck, it's good as.
I actually had to ask Reese. I sold Reese Gordon a machine.
Yep.
I had to ask Reese because I knew that he wasn't tattooing there that weekend. I'm like, can I hold on to your machine until Sunday Arvo? So it looks like I've actually got something on display because I had my own machines on there, like my daily machines. And on the Sunday, I needed 5 of them that were on the board. So I had one lonely little machine sitting there and it had sold stuck to it. But it was really cool. I'll have 10 more at Iron Gate.
Oh, nice.
To sell down there.
Yep.
Yep.
No, that's good as. I actually was going to ask you if you had some because I want to get a set, but...
Yeah, well, the sort of prep for Iron Gate's in full swing right now. So I'm building a heap of machines for that, and then after that I'll do custom orders or whatever. But I'm sure I can sneak a couple in there.
Yeah. Well, I was just looking at it the other day and I was like, I've only got the shader.
Yep.
And I wouldn't mind having like a full set.
Yeah, cool.
And they're looking, I really like them. I know it sounds like I'm just fucking sucking you off here, but...
No, you can if you want.
Yeah, well, the door's closed. So.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, I've got a few things. Oh, the Colin Creed story.
Yes.
There was this older dude in the shop. I think his daughter or his son was getting tattooed.
Yeah.
And he had like some, I think it was like realistic. I didn't actually look at the tat.
Yeah, okay.
But I was hearing the conversation because I was tattooing. And everyone was like, oh, who did you tat? And he's like, oh, I got it, like 15 years ago or whatever. And I can't remember who did it and all this. And he's like, yeah, it's just a walk-in. I was just with a friend and we just went and got, he essentially got a fucking half sleeve as a walk-in.
Yeah.
And anyway, it ended up saying the shop, and then Mickey and Cody are really into sort of tat history and stuff.
And Australian tattoo history especially.
Yeah, and they came and were looking at it heaps, and they were saying all these names because he didn't really know the shop. He knew the area. Yeah. And anyway, they were like,
oh, or something.
Yeah, was it Colin? And he's like, yeah, it was Colin. And anyway, he was like, at the time, I don't know the exact dates and stuff, but at the time, Colin had actually stopped tattooing.
Yep.
And then he was just in the shop and no one else could do it. And he's like, oh, I haven't tatted in a while, but I'll do it if you want.
Yeah.
And it was this bloke's first tat.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh yeah, all right, I'll get it. Yeah. And he was pretty rapt that it was everyone was like, oh man, Colin Creed's famous, I guess, in tattooing,
Oh, definitely, especially through the 70s and 80s, when tattooing was probably at one of its wildest stages in Australia. But Sydney was always a heavy hitter for tattooing in Australia. Melbourne was just sort of coming up at that point. You had some really, really good artists going on, but you also had a lot of people that were having a little bit too much fun with fire and shops kept getting burnt down and shot up or ran through or something like that. So, yeah.
Different era.
Yeah, oh, big time.
Hopefully it stays that way.
Yeah.
So we sort of touched on, the Vintique stuff and how you started there, all that sort of stuff. And then I've written here, what was it like apprenticing me?
Apprenticing you. That was an experience for sure, having somebody that actually wanted to learn from us.
Yeah.
You had started getting tattooed by Bobby and obviously showing a big interest in that. It was hard for me because, like you said, I've always been a little bit more technical when it comes to tattooing, always adding in little extra bits and doing all that sort of stuff. So seeing you start developing that really stripped back, New York style, to me that was so foreign.
Yeah.
And on the smaller scale of stuff as well. Like when you first started getting into it, all the stuff that you were doing with like palm size, especially the designs. But it was great. You were super willing to learn, and you were always there, just always showing up.
This is like a raw, like a life review for me. I'm sitting here like, like questioning the history of my life right now.
Oh, if you had asked me, a few years ago after it was done, it would have been like, oh fuck hell, like ran me through the ringer. Yeah. But nah, it was cool. It was fine. It was, for the most part, it was pretty drama free.
Yeah.
But everybody that works in a tattoo shop knows that tattooers get at each other a lot.
Yep.
When you work 7 foot away from somebody, you're probably going to piss them off more than what you're happy with them.
Well, I've got like 4 moments that always just stick in my mind about like, I wouldn't say necessarily like big drama, but when there was drama around me.
Yeah.
The first time was when you threw my shoes in the Yarra.
Well, you get what you get.
Yep.
When that happens. And
Converse All-Stars as well, because I wasn't allowed to wear sneakers to the Christmas party apparently.
Well.
Yep.
And I was provoked to do that. I got rubber arms, so as soon as somebody tells me to do something, I'm happy to oblige. And Bobby told me to throw him. I'm going to blame Bobby for that. Bobby told me to throw him in the Yarra, so I got a hold of your shoes.
Yep.
And they went into the Yarra, never to be seen again.
Never to be seen.
Yeah.
Nah, just near Crown Casino if anyone sees them.
Yeah. If you go and dive in there.
Yeah. Another time was, and this was like, I always remember Vintique was like, it was just like, it was all about tattooing, all about getting tattooed. And it was like.
Sometimes about golf.
A little bit about golf. You're not good at golf, I know that. And golf. I'm not good either.
I properly suck at golf. I have fun doing it. But
Bobby's into golf. We should have just said it's Bobby.
Yeah, it's Bobby's fault.
I can't remember what happened or whatever, but you were a bit off me on the day, and I text Bobby that night going like, is Scott off me? Has he got like a problem with me?
What's happened?
And I
actually remember this. This is interesting.
Yeah, so now I look back and I'm like, obviously he would have relayed that to you straight away.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, he would. He would.
But I was thinking at the time he's not going to say anything to you.
It's secret.
And it was like 30 seconds later, you text me just going like, "Have you got something to say to me or what?" And I was in bed with Bella, and I was like, I was seriously freaking out. I didn't know what to write back.
Sweating.
Yeah, and I was like, I obviously didn't text Bobby back because I was like, I know he's just going to tell you whatever I say. And I was like, oh, nah, man, all good. Just checking if I was like all good at the shop or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was just seemed to me like such an intense response, and it's burned into my memory.
Well, I've always been of the sort that, if you're going to say something or you've got something to say, just come up to me and say it.
Yeah.
And I can't even remember what I was shitty at. You probably
no. Well, I'm blaming Bobby again for that because I reckon he said to you like,
well, he loves
Hal's off you or something like that.
Bobby loves a stitch up.
Yeah, but and probably it was like actually nothing. I was just like, does Scott not like me or something?
Shit. Yeah, it would have just been but just childish shit.
That broke my heart.
Yeah, I can't even remember.
And the other time was this is your softer side when I fucked up this walk-in once.
Yeah, I actually was thinking about this.
Yeah. I'm actually going to say, like, when she left the shop, the tat looked it was just like a silhouette.
Yes.
Black.
It would have looked the way that
on like an older woman.
Yeah.
And I, at the time, I'm going to give all my excuses here.
Yeah.
At the time, had really only been tatting like bold traditional stuff.
Yeah, using the big thick nails.
Yeah. And then I started to be allowed to do like shop stuff and all that.
Start doing the walk-in.
Yeah. And I hadn't tattooed like much older skin or whatever. Anyway. It was a silhouette of like a face, like a side-on face or something like that.
Yeah.
And
it's on a like bicep sort of area.
I love that you remember this.
Yeah.
That makes me sad.
I remember the room that we're in.
Yeah.
And down to the details.
She came back the next day and it had blown out.
Yeah.
And Just like, so it was like fuzzy all around it and all that.
Yeah, so you're tattooing a piece of cellophane.
Yeah. I was tattooing at the time on a guy that I vaguely knew who had good tats from other people. So I was like, and I wasn't super confident in tattooing, probably still at the time.
Yeah, still early.
So I was nervous with tatting him. And I remember she came in to see me, but then I was tattooing and you spoke to her or something. And then you came in, you're like, oh, Hal, can I talk to you now?
I don't know why I decided to do it mid-tat.
Yeah. And I was like, said to the customer, I was like, oh, I'll go talk to Scott, whatever. So we went into the back room and you told me like the tat was fucked and whatever.
Yeah.
And then I was like so rattled.
Yeah.
And I ended up crying, but then you came and hugged me. And
I did.
you were
I
like,
gave
it's
you a
all
cuddle.
right. So you went from like being like hard on me, but then, and that was always, then I was like, oh, I knew this from other experiences, but yeah, I was like, because my whole goal ever was just to be good.
Yeah.
And that was like a big letdown for me.
Yeah.
Like,
it's very humbling when something
exactly.
comes in and it's not the way that you want it, the way that it left or the way that you wanted it to turn out.
Yeah. But yeah, then, obviously I cried, which is embarrassing, but I've cried on national television. So that's.
Yeah. And like sometimes you just need a teary.
Yeah.
Like it happens. I probably cuddled you and was like tearing up at the same time. I reckon when it comes to that sort of stuff, I'm a big pussy. So if I see somebody crying, it's hard for me not to cry.
Yeah. But there was like, well, I remember actually at my wedding, because I cried when I was doing the fucking, when I was doing the speech or whatever in the vows. And it's more like just out of embarrassment. It's like, everyone's looking at you, you're being vulnerable.
It's an emotional day as well.
And then I remember afterwards, Jade and Bobby's partner at the time were like, oh man, as soon as he started crying, Scott and Bobby were just bawling their eyes out.
Sunnies on like the whole day.
Like at a funeral.
It would have looked like I had an allergic reaction. My eyes would have been that puffy. Like, I wouldn't have been able to see properly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they were like the main. Yeah. There's obviously like a million moments.
Oh, definitely. Well, we worked together very, very closely.
Yeah.
And it was just the three of us at Vintique for so long as well before we actually brought anybody else. Yeah. Well, it feels like it was ages. I don't actually know the timeline.
No, I remember Dave was the next person.
Yeah.
I think. And it might have been Noob or.
Nah, Dave was before Noob, and then everybody sort of started trickling in.
Yeah. And then Rudy, and then sort of went from there. But yeah, fuck. Now I'm embarrassed to talk about crying.
No, it happens.
And then obviously, the Vintique era sort of ended for you and me.
Yeah.
At a very similar time. And you went back to your heartland.
Yeah. Well, I feel like when you decided to go and open Carlton Tattoo Co., for me, I was like, well, the boys are breaking up. Mm-hmm. And
it was very sad. It was very much like that.
I still remember when I posted a thing on Instagram, I thought it sounded more like I was happy for you.
Yeah.
Bobby's like, it's like you're reading a thing from his funeral, man. It's like he's dead.
It was like the ending of high school, I reckon.
It really was. You know, I could hear that Green Day song playing right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, for me, that was a big push that, like you were doing it for your own reasons, but one of them was, to be closer to home and all of that sort of stuff. And then all that shit happened with COVID and the lockdowns and stuff like that. And I got the opportunity to do this, to do what I've set up. There was also a big thing. I was grabbing my stuff from Vintique during the lockdown so I could tattoo myself and do Jade's back. And I was sitting in traffic and I was like, I've been doing this drive for 11 fucking years.
Yeah.
Like I'm starting to get over it now. It took me 11 years because I've lived in this house for 10 years now. And before then I'd never left Berwick.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like it was not having everybody there was a big push for me as well. Like I probably wouldn't have done it if you were still there and I knew Bobby was going to split his time between and stuff, and I just felt like I was going to be lonely. Yeah, maybe a bit sad. Sad boy by myself in the shop. But yeah, like we had Riot, who's my oldest son. He would have been 3 or 4 at the time. And then Lyric had just been born
Yep.
that year, the start of that year. And I really felt like I needed to be closer to home,
Yep.
make myself more available to just be there
Yep.
for the kids. That was the biggest reason why I decided to move back to the motherland.
Yep. Cranbourne.
to come back to the home stomping ground of Cranbourne. I really wanted to be closer to the kids, closer to my wife. And then when I shot the idea out there to Jade, she pretty much supports everything that I do because she knows that I'll probably just do it without her blessing anyway.
She's smart.
She's
smart.
She knows how to play the game.
Yeah.
I said, well, I want to open up a tattoo shop in Cranbourne.
Yep.
You're going to run it for me, which it's my shop just as much as it's her shop.
Yeah.
She actually does way more work than me. She pays all the bills.
Yeah.
She does all the bookings online. She does my bookings.
And you just get the tattoo.
And I just get to come in and tat.
How good's that?
And it's great. It really is. And that was my goal, was to not worry about the shop side of stuff, because I had a big part in doing that at Vintique as well. Not worry about the shop stuff and just solely focus on tattooing and the people that I was working with and building that. And we've been here for coming on 3 years now, and we're not going anywhere.
No, and it's booming.
Yeah, it is. It's really good. Being one of the only shops in a suburb really does help.
Yeah.
Cranbourne is a massive suburb, but the block of shops that we're in, on the main street, is, no other shop will open up around here. I think our name's strong enough that nobody will, there's no point for anybody else.
Yeah.
We're a street shop, so we do walk-ins, and there's somebody here to do every style of tattoo that you can want to, where we're not solely focused on one particular style.
Yeah.
So, being able to do that means we're able to service, Cranbourne and surrounding suburbs.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. It's actually been really good to see while almost we're doing the same thing. Yeah. To see how what you do and how you're doing it.
Yeah, because we're both doing tattoos, but we're doing tattoos in different suburbs, and I feel like that distance, although it might not be that great, that distance is huge.
Yeah.
And I love that walk-in shit too. I'll still do a walk-in if I got the time. You want some script, I'll bang it out for you.
Yeah.
I'll just draw it straight on.
Yeah.
So, it's been really good. Cranbourne's been very, very kind to us.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very grateful of that.
No, that's awesome, man. And Ronnie Bruce, I wanted to bring her up.
Yes, Ronnie.
So you taught her to tattoo?
I did.
Out here?
She come in two years ago.
Yep.
She actually went to your shop first, which I later found out. I didn't know any of this when I first spoke to her. But she walked in. I couldn't tell you what day it was or anything like that. She walked in. I remember the tat that I was about to do. I was about to tattoo one of my good clients, Andy's back. I was about to outline Andy's back.
Yeah.
And I was making a stencil. Jade come into the back room where I was doing that, and she said, there's this girl here that wants to show you a portfolio. And it's almost a once a week occurrence out here. People walk in, want to show you their portfolio. And, not to put anybody down, but I'd say 90% of it's dog shit. It's really, not good, and everybody's got to start somewhere.
Yeah, of course.
Definitely. But obviously having a good portfolio and knowing where you're walking into as well is a big deal.
Yeah.
So I was like, another one.
Yeah.
And Jade said, no, I think you want to take a look at it. And I was like, okay, why is that? And she said she walked into was either Vintique or Carlisle.
Yeah.
I can't remember
She,
what one it was.
she come to Carlisle.
Yeah, it was Carlisle. And somebody had said, I can't help you.
Yeah.
But go down and see Scott. He might tell you to fuck off,
That was me.
which is my response for a lot of
Yeah.
people that want to learn how to tattoo. And yeah, I checked it out, and I don't think I started that back job for like an hour and a half after I was meant to start, because I was just looking through our book. Andy's a good friend of mine.
Yep.
So he was completely understanding about it. Prolonging the inevitable, getting his back outlined, but
he's probably hoping you've said, "Oh, we won't do it today, bro. We'll just hang out."
Let's do it another day. But I had to look through her portfolio, and I was blown away.
Yeah.
I really, really was. She's an amazing artist. She's a great person, and all of that stood out. Really, really stood out.
Yeah.
And I had just said to her, I was like, look, I don't know what I'm like doing. I'm busy. I'm very, very busy.
Yeah.
But if you want, like, I'd like to have a bit more of a chat with you. I'd like to see more of your stuff. Come back another day.
Yeah.
And I left it very, very open-ended, more so to see if she would actually come back.
Yeah.
And she showed up the next day.
Yeah.
And she showed up the day after.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get rid of her. this little bald thing hanging around me.
Yeah.
Ronnie's got no hair. It's on purpose. yeah. She's not receding or anything. But no, she and the funny thing about that is because nobody had seen her in the shop before, you know, like clients and stuff are coming in, and they're like, oh, you know, who's that? And I said, oh, this is Ronnie. And at the time I had the full shaved head as well going. And I used to tell people, and I still tell people now, that I made her shave her head to get an apprenticeship here. She didn't. But it's just a funny little thing that we sort of say. But she picked it up so fast.
Yeah, she did.
I think the big difference between Ronnie and teaching you was that I had a lot of time in between. I feel like I was a bit more like tough on you. You know, fucking go and do this, fucking go do that. And then I think the kids had made me go soft as well. But, you know, I'd talk to her like that now. Yeah. But I would never speak to her like that back then. Yeah. And yeah, I feel like everything that I asked her to do, she would just do it. Yeah. She never questioned it. And it was all for purpose as well. And it might be the most repetitive shit that you've ever done. But she just kept on doing it. She would do it and she would do it. And yeah, she really just took it and ran with it. I never tried to like dictate her style or anything like that, which I feel like is a big part of it as well, is that now you can come into tattooing and you don't have to be able to tattoo everything. Yeah. You know, people who are wanting to apprentice or aspiring apprentices or whatever they want to call them, they're all trying to do their own style. Some of it is way too nichey to the point where it's like you're never going to get a job in tattooing because you've closed yourself off that much and you don't know anything about anything else with tattooing. But she was just doing stripped back trad stuff. But she really cut her teeth doing walk-in stuff here. I've got her first tattoo that she ever did. And like, fuck, if I could tattoo like that when back then, you know, it'd be absolutely crazy. But
definitely.
I do feel like it's a bit maybe easier now. In its own different way.
It's that weird one, and I wanted to talk to you about like tattooing back then versus tattooing now, but I definitely think like on a few points you made there, like I've only met Ronnie I think 2 times. One was at your 30th and the other time was when she come into the shop.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I've but I obviously see her through her social media and through the shop and through you and stuff. So you sort of, I guess you feel like you know them.
Yeah, definitely.
But it was like I was I can't even remember how it came up saying like, you should go see Scott or whatever. Yeah. But it was like if you're going into a shop in St Kilda and then you're happy to drive out to a shop in Cranny,
definitely.
it's like, most people, because same with us, we get one person a week comes in, wants to show their portfolio, which I always respect, because it's daunting and.
Oh, definitely. It's a scary thing.
Yeah.
Like walking into a tattoo shop, especially when you're confronted by either like yourself or me, you're 6 foot, you're fucking big dude, very heavily tattooed. And same with me. It can be very scary.
Yeah.
And it's very daunting. You don't know what you're walking into.
Yeah. So I always respect that massively and try and give them the time, even though it's always hard because you're tattooing or whatever.
Yeah.
But then when I saw that she did come out here and ultimately got the apprenticeship is like, that in itself was like, fuck, like a lot of people you would say like, oh, go to this shop, go to that shop. And they just never would.
And they never do. Yeah.
And then, as you were saying, she came back the next day, the next day, the next day.
She just kept on showing up.
Yeah, we get a lot of like, obviously with the social media and the podcast and stuff, like a lot of people are like interested about tattooing, aspiring to tattoo or whatever. And that's always the thing I feel like I try and reiterate is like, it's like forget about the financial side and doing cool tats and doing your style. It's like, I feel like if you want, and this is just me, but I've picked it up from you guys, is like, if you want to become a tattooer and ultimately have the option or the opportunity to direct it in whatever way you want. Yeah. It's like, you've just got to be desperate to like do it.
Well, you got to do, and like that results in pretty much doing anything that you need to.
Yeah.
And some people turn their nose up at doing walk-in stuff. And I get it, like you're too busy or you don't want to do that sort of shit. But I've got the proof with a lot of my clientele, whereas they come in for a walk-in or something that I wouldn't really look at outside of when they wanted to get it done.
Yeah.
And I've done it on them, and then the next tattoo that they get from me is a bit closer to what I do.
Yeah.
And then they come in with another idea and you say, yeah, I could do that, but if I do it like this, I think it'll look really cool.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, you're doing their back.
Yeah.
That's an escalation for sure. But I tattoo a lot of, right now I'm tattooing heaps of people that I tattooed 10 years ago.
Yeah.
15 years ago. And, like one guy walked in and I reckon I would have gone white. He had like the first ever tribal sleeve that I outlined on somebody. And it's still just outlined, like a great deal of it's still just outlined. But, I did that. He knew, found out that I moved back to the area. And now I'm doing like his whole back. Yeah. And he's pretty much just giving me free reign to do whatever I want with him.
That's so good. And it's like the longer you tattoo, the more you experience that. And I try and convey to like younger tattooers or the young guys in the shop or anyone that it's like, that one, sort of non-memorable walk-in tat that you do is, realistically nothing to you in your career.
Yeah, that's right.
But for that person, that might be the only tat they get.
Well, or it's one of the most important things, or the biggest thing that you could ever do to yourself, in my opinion, is like get something put on your skin that is meant to last a lifetime. Yeah. And like you said, like I tattooed my younger brother maybe 6 years ago, and he has not and will never get another tattoo again. He's got one tattoo. It's the most meaningful thing that he's ever had. Yeah. And he would never add to it. He won't do anything. But it wasn't something that I would normally do, but I did it for him. And like he's stoked with it. Yeah. And that's all that really matters. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what fucking social media says about the tat that you did or people passing comments and shit like that. It's like as long as that one person who has that tattoo is happy with it, it doesn't matter what it is, as long as the client's happy with it. That's all that matters.
And that's how that's one of the things that I've always taken with me from learning at Vintique from Bobby and you, is that it's like, even though I might not think it's the coolest thing or whatever, but it's like make that customer feel like how you would make a customer feel if you were doing the tat you thought was the sickest tat.
Yeah, that's right. It doesn't matter what they're getting. You should treat everybody the same.
Yeah. And that's ultimately how you build up a big clientele.
That's right. And like I have a very vast clientele as well.
Yeah.
I heard you talking about it on one of the last episodes, like body of work.
Yeah.
And I just kept on thinking about that. And it's like, yeah, the body of work that I have currently on the go is pretty wild.
Oh, it's massive.
Like with some of the biggest stuff that I've ever done.
Yeah.
Leading from back jobs, then they're getting their ass done and we're linking their legs up and we're linking their arms up and, it'll be a full bodysuit and it's not just one or two people, it's a lot.
Yeah. And moving on to exactly what you've just brought up about your body of work. So it's like, I would say it's like at the core of it, you do traditional.
Yeah.
There's like a big Japanese influence in there.
Oh, definitely.
More,
very heavily.
More now than there was initially.
Yeah, big time.
And I don't know if you'd say this, but I've heard people refer to it as Scott style.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you can claim that or not claim that if you want.
Well, I wouldn't say like what I do now is definitely my own like style of traditional. I guess it is very Japanese inspired, traditional based tattoos, and then like the actual tattoo that is there, and then people want me to background around it and go wild, and they want 3 mil of skin showing anyway. I wouldn't say that definitely didn't create that.
Yeah,
like I'm not going to take credit for that. I pinched that from Japanese tattooing. Yeah, for sure. But then I just made it more traditional. Japanese is the style of tattooing is super appealing to me. Yeah. But I know that it's not appealing to everyone. And people don't necessarily want to have a full sleeve outlined and then you just chip away at it. Yeah. Want to come in, bang something out, bang 1, 2, 3 pieces out in a session or whatever, and then do the big background after that. Yeah. It is definitely distinctive for sure. And I started pushing that because tattooing to me is like, if you want a sleeve done, then you get a full sleeve done. Like it looks like you're walking around with a long sleeve from across the room. Yep. And yeah, it's pretty crazy that like that's 95% of what I do now is that very, very heavy. Yeah. But like it's soft and I throw the soft shades in there and I still use a round shader to actually shade things instead of just using it to outline and stuff like that. Like I still do a lot of that sort of stuff that really come from like the core of where I started tattooing, which is that finer detail sort of stuff. Yeah, you throw a big thick outline around it and flick some shit around and it looks cool.
No, yeah, it's definitely it's very distinctive and I always obviously wanting to pursue the being heavily tattooed. It's like even though I don't have a single fucking tattoo like that.
Yeah, that's right.
I think it's like I don't know if you saw it, but Hamish Hamilton from King Kong's.
Yeah, his work is wild.
Did you see that photo with all the backs and stuff? And
it's insane.
That was a great example of like body of work. You put up the photos the other week of those few customers who are essentially got full bodysuits.
Yeah, that's right.
And I remember one of them, I'm not sure his name. He's got the eagle on the front and the boat and stuff with the chains.
Yeah, Daniel.
I remember when he was getting all that stuff originally.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's like just the progression over time and
I have a lot with Daniel and the other guy in that photo as well, Robbie. He's been one of my best friends for a very, very long time now. I remember him bringing his baby in while he was getting tattooed. Well, one of his friends was getting tattooed when I was an apprentice. So I've known him for a very, very long time now. I reckon I have a lot to thank for like a client's point, Daniel and Robbie, alongside a lot of other people. But Robbie come in one day and he's like, I'd already done his back. I'd done a few other things on him. He's like, I want my legs done. Yeah. Do whatever you want. And
was he coming in every fucking week pretty much?
He still comes in every week now.
Crazy.
Yeah. So we're doing both his full blast over sleeves now.
Yeah. See the one with the dragon blast over on the front?
He's got a massive dragon blast over on his front, which is probably one of my most hated photos on Instagram.
Why?
People don't get it. There's like
really?
a lot of that. Yeah, I've definitely found over the last.
I actually wish I looked like that.
Yeah, so like, well, I do, and I wish I looked more like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, not Bobby, Robbie and Dan, I have a lot to thank.
Yeah.
To those guys, because Dan and Robbie have some of that. There's a long list of names I could rattle off, but that would look at the tattoos that I had underneath my Blastovers and were like, I want sleeves like that.
Yeah.
Which was heaps of saturation, colourful background,
Yeah.
like stuff like that. And then I really started tipping into that heavier, blacker background, high contrast, little bit of skin showing.
Yeah.
And then Robbie pretty much just let me loose on his legs. And I really feel like that was a turning point in my career.
Yeah.
For that was that we could really push the envelope with something big, large scale, like just heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if anybody who's been tattooed by me, thank you. But those real heavy hitters like that,
Yep.
I owe everything to them. I really do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Really awesome. Well, my phone's just ran out of battery. And that was pretty much one of the last questions I had anyway.
No, that's cool. Yeah.
You got anything you want to add? You want to say to the people?
No, not really.
No?
Like, yeah, thank you if you've been tattooed, if you want to get tattooed. And if you decide to jump on my Instagram and throw a whole heap of hate at me, I love that shit. So
Yeah, you're one of the few people who like fully engages that.
yeah, I just leave all the negative comments up unless you start getting like racial or homophobic, which has been a really big thing on my page right now. Yeah, a guy the other day decided to drop some very hateful sort of stuff after having a big rant on there. But if I'm sitting there drinking my coffee in the morning and I see some negative shit on there, I'll leave it up. I provoke it more.
Yeah.
My tattoos are by no means for everyone.
Yeah.
And I write it over and over and over again on my photos.
Yeah.
They are not for the tattoo is not for everyone. It's only for that person that is wearing it. As long as they're happy with it, then I don't give a shit about what anybody else has to say about it. So thank you for all the love and
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a good note to end on.
That's right.
From me, thank you to you, Scott.
Thanks for having me.
For everything you've done for my tattooing career and my life.
Mate. You made me very proud.
Yeah.
Papa.
Thank you. And to everyone listening, thank you. If you want to check out Scott's Instagram, it's Scott Moss Tattoos.
Yep.
The machines is SM Machines.
SM Machines, and we got Golden Heart Tattoo Parlor.
Yep.
On Instagram.
Yeah, go give them a follow, have a look. And we'll be back in your ears in a week's time.
Cool.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, mate.
This episode is brought to you by Carlisle Tattoo Co. 178 Carlisle Street, St Kilda, Melbourne, Australia.